here to talk about this pretty cool Ahsoka Scrapflex mashup that Nick at Starfall did and asked me to install for his client. So let's hop down to the table. We'll talk about the electronics. We'll go over a few commands. Anything I don't cover will be on a printout of instructions for the client. And yeah, then we'll hop back out. We'll go over a few more blade styles, show a few more commands, and then we'll wrap it up. Thanks for checking it out. All right, so we're here to talk about this Starfall Ahsoka Scrapflex mashup that was sent to me for install. So we do have this hand-etched Togruta markings that Nick did on the aluminum grip area. And then we have this really cool, at first when I saw the photos, I thought this was, you know, his typical thin leather wrap, but this is actually like a brown coating on a, you know, milled section of grip. So I thought that was pretty cool. Interesting pommel with brass accents. Really cool shroud layering here. So up top, we've got our brass Phil Guinness at Kalymian Custom Sabers. That is our main button. Off to the side, we have an aux, which is our dome tactile. You can see I've already pulled the blade plug out. So we have a, if I can find my camera, we have a DIY neopixel emitter that is one that I hand assembled. It's the last of some stock I use. It's very similar to a stock V3. Short pins, 16 neopixels in a rotary array. That will just mimic what's in the blade. There's nothing special going on there. But I do want to mention that while this blade plug is provided by Nick and it's all metal and it's shorter than the full blade depth, I don't know if I can show that really. Do exercise caution. If you have the electronics in and on and there's power being sent through those pogo pins and this metal blade plug accidentally touches them, it could ground out, causing a short, frying something. So you don't want, when you go to put the blade plug in, you want to make sure the battery's out or the kill switch is off. And then you just kind of want to align it at the tip and then cinch your blade retention screw, which that is your blade retention. This is the neopixel holder retention, and while it is a different size than what was provided by Nick for your grip retention down here and your blade retention, just don't mess with that. So if you lose this and you have a multi-tool or something like that, and you're fiddling with this and you just forget that this is the grip and this is the blade, just don't touch this one because you don't want that neopixel sliding around. So to get to everything, that being said, we do want to unscrew our blade retention here. And we can pull our grip off. I'll set this aside for a second. And so here we have our exposed crystal chamber, and then my standard Starfall press fit design with some, you know, conduit markings and that. So we've got a Proffie V2 high amp kill switch. We've got a 28mm KR bass speaker. And on the back side, we've got the battery tray with the Starfall logo and then positive and negative clearly identified. We'll go ahead and put our battery in, spring side's the negative. So nipple to nipple. And then we'll hit our kill switch on. Got our boot sound. Again, this is sporting the Starfall font package, 8 fonts, or I should say presets, 8 presets. The crystal is its own blade style, but for the most part, they are corresponding blade colors. But if you wanted to, you could totally program these independently of each other if you got into the config. Now, the config will be on the SD card, and the last preset will be a battery level indicator. So to switch fonts, we'll hit our aux with the blade off. But if we want to go backwards real quick to the battery level preset,
battery level,
we'll face the hilt towards the ground and then hit aux. And so we can see we've got kind of a yellowish color, which means we're about halfway charged between the green for full and the red for empty, which, you know, you'll likely hear speaker crackle before this ever gets into red. If you aren't on the battery level preset, but you don't have the blade ignited, you could totally do an on-demand battery level by holding aux and tapping power.
Battery level 55%.
So that's why we have a yellow. Okay, so like I said, to move forward, we hit aux in the off state, or we can hit power to ignite. The crystals, while being their own animation, will generally, like I said, match the blade color, but it will vary between a pulsing, a blinking, in the off state, something like that, or like a light flicker in the on state. It just depends on which preset you're on. So to ignite, we'll hit it power. So now we can see it's more of a solid color with a light flicker, but it will respond to clashes. I'm sorry, that was blaster blocks, clashes. Or if we hold it to lock it up. Right. So, and then again, to change, we'll just hit aux. So we'll just check out a couple colors here. So we can see that's a heartbeat. Now again, these are independent on the blades on the config. So you have two blades, a single neopixel 50/50 underneath, and then the blade, which is programmed for a 32-inch length. So.
Hero's Journey.
We do have gesture control. We have twist on and twist off, and then thrust on, which I'll demonstrate those with the blade in. It's a little bit easier to see. Gesture controls will get you into battle mode, which means to hold a lockup, you don't have to press a button. You can just clash the saber, and as long as you're not moving immediately away from that position, it will begin the lockup until you pull away. So that's easier to demonstrate with the blade in. So when we're ready, put the grip on, and then we'll align all those set screws. And then take our provided Allen key, cinch that down. I like to recommend you use the long position so you don't get enough torque. This little short leg means you can't really crank down too hard. So we just need to cinch that so that's good to go. Twist on. Got smooth swing. Got our neopixel lighting up like it should. Again, it's just gonna match what's going on in the blade. So yeah, and then when we're ready, we can just pull the grip back off for long-term storage. Pull the grip off, hit that kill switch, and then this is ready to sit on a shelf. So let's go over the rest of the controls with the blade in, and then we'll wrap it up. Now, anything I don't cover in this video will be on a printout. This is sporting Proffie OS 710 with the FET263 prop file and his blade styles. So that website will educate you on anything that is not provided in this video. All right, so we talked about what's going on with the electronics. A few button commands, showed off a few styles, at least with the crystal in place. So now let's go and show off what's going on with the blade. This is a 32-inch, 7/8 diameter blade. So I believe that is what Nick will be sending to the client. The config is on the SD card if any changes need to be made and pushed via Arduino. So we have 8 presets, and then our last preset is a battery level indicator. Now again, I think I mentioned this down below. I've provided extra free fonts on the card, but I did not program them in. You have the ability to do that a number of ways. Check the printout of instructions. So I'm not going to go over those, but we will show off a few blade styles here. But mainly, I just want to show off how to operate the main functions of the saber. So to do that, we'll hit our ignition button, which is our brass tactile. So this is the High Republic sound font. I just want to show off this one because it's blue. And I think Ahsoka had blue, green blades in the Clone Wars, and then obviously white in the subsequent films or shows. So when we hit ignite, we're in regular operation. So when we clash the saber, we just get clash sounds. If we want blaster blocks, we'll hit the aux button, which is our dome tactile. To engage a lockup, however, we need to hold either main or aux and clash the saber. And for as long as I'm holding that button, we'll be in a lockup. Now, a lockup is not just for the middle of the blade. A lockup can also be a melt if we're pushing sideways before we engage that lockup, or similarly if we're pointing down. So let's show that real quick. So I clashed when I was horizontal, and the longer I hold this, you'll see the more animated it gets. We can also rotate. It's probably not showing up well on camera, but we rotate and we get from anywhere from like a yellow to a red color until I let go. Similarly, if we're pointing down and we clash, get that white until we let go. So if we don't engage a lockup, when we do the same sideways command, we'll get our stab effect, which is a different color for each blade. And it's a short, just as long as that little sound effect lasts. So that's stab. So to change the color, if we didn't want to keep this blue, we'll hold aux and tap power. We'll get that little sound effect.
Red,
and then
orange, red.
I do have it announce the colors. If you want to get a more fine-tuned color, you'd hold a button while you rotate. I find it's hard for me to demonstrate that
Dark orange,
on camera.
orange, gold.
To accept,
yellow.
we'll hit power. And so now it will remember that for the next time we use it. But we want to get that back to blue for this
red,
preset.
Orange, red, blue.
And then we're back to that color. So again, that's color change. Now, the last preset, which is corn horn, you don't get to change between colors. It will, change the blade color. You'll just change between two colors. So let's demonstrate that real quick. So we're on the last sound font / preset. We start in a white, and then if we hit hold aux tap power, I don't know how well that shows up on camera, but now it wiped to a light purple, and that'll show up in the crystal as well. So I'm not going to take the grip off to show you, but do that again, and now we're back to white. Hopefully you can see that with the ambient lighting. I tried to do something creative behind me, but you'll see it in person. So that's color change. To start a track in the off state, we'll hold the power button for a second. If we're upright, it will play the track that I've designated. In any other position, it will start track player mode. Here, let's just demonstrate that. So hold power for a second. Now, if I rotate, some of these are quieter than others. And if I want to keep playing it, I'll hit power. Now I can actually swing the saber around and then hold power to turn it off. Now, if we're pointing upright and we hold power, we'll play the track that is designated, which happens to be the one that I just picked. So because it's the speeder bike sound font. So now you notice I'm still pointing up when this blade is on, and I pressed power for a second. I was able to turn the track on and off as well. So when the blade is on, it will only turn on and off the designated track for that preset if you're in the upright position, which happens to just be a sound effect really, so we'll go backwards. So this is the track designated because I'm holding upright. Now I can start it up. And if I hold power and I'm not upright, I'll do a force effect. So you'll see it kind of does an unstable effect until the sound effects is done playing. But if I hold it upright and hold power for a second, I've turned the track off. So a lot of different commands with just holding the power button for a second, depending on if you're in the on or off state and depending on which orientation you have the state. So that being said, if you do choose to add fonts later, I do have quote player enabled. Now, none of the Starfall fonts have a differentiation between quotes. Some of the force effects are quotes themselves. It just depends on which font you're on. So if you did have a sound font with a quote, you can switch between force effect and quote if you point the saber down when it's on. And you'll know because it'll say the first the first quote that is programmed into the sound font. Again, none of these have that. That's just for future reference. If you do decide to add, the functionality is already built into the config. So the only other caveats I want to mention are with regard to preons. There's only one Starfall sound font with a preon, and that is Ruin. So let's jump to that real quick.
Heroes.
And so the only way to get the preon is to hit power. If you do a gesture control, you'll bypass that. So let's do that real quick. I'm gonna hit power. And then just briefly in the emitter, you'll watch a quick animation. Probably hard to see with my lighting arrangement in here. See if I back off the camera a little bit. There we go. So real quick, it just kind of does a spark up. But if we do our gesture controls, which again, I have programmed twist on, twist off, and thrust on. So I'll do twist on real quick. Nothing will happen. It'll just ignite the saber. So none of that extra animation happened. Now, so twist off. Now thrust on, you kind of have to be horizontal, and it's either a push or a pull with a little bit of force. So now I'm in battle mode. So like I mentioned before, if I clash the saber, it will begin a lockup. As long as I don't move the saber away from that position. Now, you can engage the lockup and sort of move it away, right? You can move it around like you're fighting. But if you pull away from that position, you'll disengage the lockup. Same goes for all of the other orientations of lockup. So that's going to cover the majority of the functionality. The rest will be on the printout. If you have any questions to the client, please feel free to email me. Nick will have my contact information for you when he ships his stuff to you. I'm just going to be shipping you the saber from myself. He's got the blade and the battery coming since I know you're overseas. One thing I just missed real quick before I was wrapping this up is the battery level indicator. Now I showed down on the table that the crystal will go from a green to a red, depending on how charged it is. And I did show that there's a button command that if you're not on the battery level preset, you can get a spoken percentage amount. So again, I'll show that real quick. It's the same button command as if you want to change the blade color. It's just when the blade is off. So we'll hold aux and tap power.
Battery level 45%.
So we've got a low charge here. Still got good speaker sound, but depending on what blade color you've got and what's going on with that particular sound font, you may start to hear crackling anywhere in the 30 to 20% range. It just depends. Every saber is different. Every battery is different. So don't be alarmed if you do hear speaker crackle. That just indicates you should probably charge your battery first.
Battery level.
Final preset shows the battery level. Now again, because this is programmed for a 32-inch length, when it is fully charged, it will be all the way out here to the tip. Since we're essentially halfway, we're down here in the middle. And that goes from like a blue to a green to, right now it looks kind of white, and then it will go down to red. But again, you can always hit the button command for the percentage. But this last preset is just if you've got the saber and you're swinging it around, or you're in an area where you can't hear, you can get a quick read on your battery and then move on. So that's that. So again, I appreciate Nick for him trusting me with another install, and thanks again for checking it out. Appreciate it.